Well, we've had a couple of days of record breaking heat up here for May across the northern reaches of the US. And of course, you probably heard we're also going to cool down here for a while. So, in that transition time, we're going to be talking about the possibility, at least, of seeing a little bit of severe weather. So, as we go into Wednesday, we've got some strong winds at the mid levels pushing in through the Dakotas going through the day. And of course, we've got plenty of heat involved already. Our dew points for the time being aren't that great, but as we get into Tuesday and more so into Wednesday, more of that moist air gets drawn up into our region. And by the time we get into Wednesday, we're looking at dew points in the 50s and 60s possibly. So as we get into Wednesday, we're going to have this weather system that's going to be ejecting out of the Rockies and moving through our region. And because we've got that strong mid-level winds in place, we're going to have the heat, we're going to have the humidity. We've got the possibility of some strong to severe storms developing across mainly the Dakotas as we get late afternoon and into the evening, Wednesday evening, and then possibly trekking a little bit into Minnesota through the overnight hours and perhaps into Thursday morning as well. Now, this little system just sits and kind of spins for a while, and so we're going to be seeing plenty of rain and thunderstorms across our area, some much needed moisture coming across the Dakotas and Minnesota. So all in all, what we're really going to be thankful for by the time it's done is ultimately all the moisture that's going to be dumping across our area. And so it looks like we're going to start off Wednesday morning with a few storms off into the western parts of North Dakota. But it's really not, of course, until we get to a little bit later into the day on Wednesday, when we get kind of that max heating going on before some storms begin to erupt, more so across the central parts of North and South Dakota. Now, given we've got the strong mid-level winds out of the south, we also have some strong mid-level or low-level winds out of the south-southeast. Not really concerned, of course, about tornadoes. Mostly what I'm thinking with this is going to be some strong winds, some hail associated with these storms. Not high-end stuff, but probably more so on the low end. Nevertheless, we do have the possibility of seeing some severe weather as we go into the day on Wednesday. Now, through the evening and overnight hours, we're looking at those storms pushing more so into Minnesota and just continuing rainfall across a good portion of the region. I think once we get perhaps later in the morning on Thursday, we've at least got the possibility of some more storms kind of firing up across Minnesota and quickly moving east-northeast. Now, one or two of these might be severe with some small hail, perhaps some stronger winds. The other thing to sort of keep in mind is further back, closer to this low, as these storms kind of circulate around the low. Maybe, perhaps on Thursday, we might have a slight possibility of seeing a brief funnel cloud or two across the eastern portions of the Dakotas. Not too concerned about that at all, but I'm just kind of throwing that out there because this seems like the type of setup, type of scenario where you would see that type, you would see these little funnels spin up for a brief moment. So keep that in mind. All in all, though, I think on Thursday, we're just looking at rain and thunderstorms for the most part, some well-needed moisture before this system begins to pull out on Friday and ultimately cool things down as well. How much rain will fall? Well, this is kind of an estimate. It's going to be varying just depending on where some of these thunderstorms actually set up. But just to kind of give you a general idea, it looks like central and eastern parts of the Dakotas into western parts of Minnesota has the best chance for seeing some very favorable moisture of an inch or more. Even back into the western parts of North Dakota, where they're really, really dry. They ultimately could use an inch or more of rain. I think they could see at least a half inch. Granted, for you guys out there, you're hoping for way more than that, but I think at this point, anything's going to help. So it looks like you should pick up a half inch of rain off of this. And then as you get a little bit further east, you're looking at a tenth of an inch to a half inch. And probably the driest of it all is probably going to be down in southwestern parts of South Dakota. That's probably the least likely area to see any type of moisture out of this. Now, we also do have a couple more days of heat on Tuesday and Wednesday, especially across eastern Dakotas and Minnesota, where we're going to be looking at highs still in the 90s. But as we get into Thursday here, you can see we're starting to see the temperatures cool off, those highs in the 60s and 50s. Friday gets even cooler with highs only in the mid 40s up in the north. Trend kind of continues going into Saturday, where we're looking at kind of the upper 40s in the north to near 70 across the south. And by Sunday, a whole lot of 50s with some 60s and maybe some 70 down in the southeast. Now, it does look like we have another system pulling out of the Rockies going next Monday into Tuesday, perhaps bringing another round of showers and thunderstorms. Maybe again, a few of those could be severe. We'll see exactly how those play out. But nevertheless, it does look like we have another round of moisture coming. Don't necessarily rely on the exact location, especially as we get that far out. This is just one model. We take a look at another model going into the same time frame. Looks kind of close, but there were earlier runs that kind of pushed this storm a little bit further to the south and kept the northwestern parts of our area dry. So a little bit too far out to tell exactly how this will play out, but it does look like we have another moisture maker running through our area. But that will also mean some cooler temperatures going into next week as this pulls in some more colder air behind this, particularly across the Dakotas and northern parts of Minnesota. So a little bit cooler, perhaps going or lasting, persisting into next week as well. So there you go, quick little forecast for you. So for those of you across central parts of the Dakotas, just keep an eye on the sky as we get later in the day on Wednesday. A few of those storms could be severe with some hail and some strong gusty winds. Thankfully, we're going to be getting some much needed moisture out of this, and then another system coming next week as well. So we'll be talking about that probably going on into the weekend. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Werner. Everybody have a good day.